Just Another Job, Part 6, Floating Librarians. A good sword and dagger combo was always nifty to have on your belt. The sword named Sap was somewhat heavier than most short-arming swords. This weapon had no fuller and instead the blade was thicker at the center. That added weight allowed the swordsman to strike with the flat of its blade, and the weapon had a nifty enchantment rolled into it called Brawler Magic. When you hit someone with the flat, protruding part of the sword, it was as if you were wielding a small mace. The weapon gifted this already versatile and quick sword with even more uses during combat. You could stab, slash, or even crush someone's bones in it with it, unless they wore plate armor, that is. In most cases, Rem would pick on one of his treasured shields and pair it with Sap. Not on this job, however. He picked up one of his favorite daggers called Sparrow and flung the perfectly weighted weapon at the nearby training dummy. After Val placed the bracer which came along with Sparrow on his left wrist, and with a thought, Rem ordered the dagger back to his opened hand, which it did quickly, and if one was not careful, they would get hurt by its handle, or, can forbid, the blade. The dagger was an excellent offhand weapon, and in melee, most swordsmen used one to glance off parry blows, while they reposed with their main weapon. Rem quickly attached both Sap and Sparrow's sheaths to his sword belt. After reactivating all wards and locking the doors, the solver of problems left his armory. Dressed for success, and with Val in following him closely, he redirected his steps towards the mansion's library. One of his helpers had set up shop there, brewed potions, and kept watch over Rem's small collection of magical items. Never mind that the job was an easy one. You never went out of your home without at least one magical item. Of course, only the daftest people would enter a dangerous situation without a potion or two clinking in their pockets. Although he certainly had pockets, Rem's line of work required an approach most stealthily. He kept a few of them in one reinforced little box, coated with wood and neatly secured on his belt. It had 3 empty slots, which he intended to fill with healing potions. Rem was not going to war, yet there was still danger in any engagement, however minor it may seem at first glance. After reaching the main hall, Rem and his maid split for a short while. Val rushed towards the mansion's pantry, while he checked if his mansion's traps were activated and recharged. His trusty maid soon came back carrying a 5-day ration pack and 1 canteen full of mead. Rem had absolutely no desire to drink from the 4 streams or stale rainwater. The danger from the parasites and all sorts of illnesses which could damage your health and even kill you was ever present. Indeed, one could easily remedy that by filtering and boiling the water, but he wasn't going on a long journey. Just in case, though, Val packed a couple of alchemist water cleansing pills for him. Those he could drop in his canteen and then drink the metallic tasting but cleaned water. Although the waters of the Slough River flowed nearby, hunting giant carp without a spear was near suicide. The otherwise tasty swimming critters would easily eat whole any idiot dumb enough to get close. Rem touched his bow and sighed. Perhaps a rope tied to one of his arrows? No. That wasn't the smartest either, because giant carp swam so fast that they could drag you into the water with ease. They even uprooted small trees if you tied the other end of the rope to one, thinking that could help you. Chuckling, Rem reached for the library's door and, after pushing it open, abandoned all thoughts of fishing. He was going to hunt useless, not battle the much stronger and elusive tasty fishies. Rem calmly smiled at his maid, and before he entered the library, gave her his last instructions. Valeria, I want you to stay inside the mansion and keep to yourself for the duration of this job. We have a pantry full of food, the doors are sturdy, and the locks hard to pick. All wards are up, the traps are reloaded, and just to be on the safe side, keep that gun on your person at all times. His maid gave him another one of her confused looks before bowing politely. It is as the master wishes, she uttered with her most professional tone of voice, and yet Rem sensed that she was tense. He was sure that Val would do as he asked of her and try to stay safe. The solver of problems had many enemies, and some of them would gladly try to use his friends or helpers against him. Rem hoped that this time, at least during his vacation, there would be no problems. He watched how Val walked with her usual grace, dressed in her immaculate maid outfit. The young woman bowed at him before she entered the mansion's storage room and continued her daily work routine. His small library had an alchemist's lab, and around it, as always, floated the skull of his friend Felkmar. The Lich had somehow lost the rest of his body while lying in his coffin. When Felkmar finally woke up, he found that the rest of his tomb was picked clean too. Somehow, someone managed to slip past Kane's tomb guardians, the traps, wards, and other defenses, to steal his very body and all his stuff. To pull a feat like this and then escape unnoticed, while lugging all that loot, was a thing almost inconceivable. To a Canite like Rem, this was a heretical act, and one of his sources supplied him with this information after the temple had covered it. Kane's priesthood wished no altercation with angered and scared citizens of Karat. Nobody wanted to be informed that their deceased loved one could be robbed of their possessions and their tombs desecrated under the temple's watch's noses. For sure, they offered some form of compensation to Felkmar, yet whatever the size of that sum was, nothing could turn back time and change what had already occurred. Rem befriended the Holy Undead a year after he met him in one seedy tavern, Karat's Eternal Quarter. The Lonely Skull was drinking his sorrows away, consuming copious amounts of spirit wine, and had chalked up quite a tab. Said tab Rem promised to cover, and that aid the unfortunate Lich in his body-searching quest. Felkmar, or simply Felk, was of calm and collected character, and a capable alchemist, which was a fact known to Rem. He quickly made use of his new helper's workaholic tendencies and put Felk to work, brewing potions, recharging magical items, or identifying his collection of looted gear. Rem, be careful when picking those health potions. I tried stacking them higher, but, you know. The floating skull's eyes blinked a couple of times before he continued. I got no hands. That and those cheap candles of yours. Can you see my beautiful bony face? It's all covered with soot. By Can's name, I swear these working conditions are appalling and I demand a raise now. The library echoed with Felkmar's cackle as he floated over Rem's shoulder, his eye sockets glowing with a bluish energy. After Rem stashed 3 potions in his well-secured on his belt reinforced box and closed it, the man sat on one of the free-from-books chairs. Pulling a handkerchief from his pocket, Rem carefully wiped the candle wax and soot from his friend's skull. There, you look like 1,000 gold pieces. Now cut the crap about raising wages, Felk. You know full well that I and my contacts are still digging. When they should have something, we will start working on it. Those were some sneaky bastards, the ones who managed to lift your stuff and the rest of you. They are bad news, a hot subject, and as you can probably imagine, the temple wants no trouble. The priests are keeping this under wraps. They snuffed all sources of information, and I could usually rely on from the inside, although someone like me can usually do stuff under their divining spells, which they most certainly use to enforce their cover-up. The guards have to catch me first. That will be the day, chuckled Felk again, while floating back to one of his books, and used magic kinesis to turn the next page. Now, do you want me to show you what newly recharged stuff I have in my chest or not? Yes, please. I'm not getting any younger, your boniness, and that new job came with a time limit. Rem reached for the small, warded chest which was stashed beneath the potion table, pulled it from under the candlelight, and waited for Felk to unlock it. Mura, hissed the lich, and something on the chest inside clicked loudly. The undead then breathed blue-colored magical air, which engulfed the chest. Rem saw a couple of runes around it flicker and vanish. What have we here? Anxious to see what the lich had been working on, identifying and then recharging, using his own magical energy. Thieves who were dumb enough to try to steal something, well, they'd be instantly disintegrated by the chest's wards. Come to think of it, the chest had an alchemical lock on it too. That information he kept in the back end of his mind again bothered him, and the solver of problems decided to ask his known alchemist more. Did you know that this elf, the chest maker Vervik, was murdered a few days ago? Asked the lich to Rem, while his hands were still on the chest lid up and he marveled at its contents. Bah! Probably he asked someone too much for changing their lock's password. That elven bastard was always too greedy a fool to realize that you don't F with some people, not ever. Belkmar's glowing eyes turned from the book he was reading and focused on Rem's face. Why? You don't think that this is somehow connected to the new job, do you? I don't know what to think. That was just the usual info letter that my contacts in Karak supply me with in the Ninthly. You know, the usual stuff. Rumors about who dated who, some of the most notable murderers, dangerous intrigues, that kind of dreck. Rem, I think you shouldn't ask anyone to dig deeper if I were you. Vervik was a spiteful old elven elf, and he had a lot of enemies. If anything, you should do it personally. The lich examined Rem's slightly startled reaction to his words, then floated away from the book and added the following. Can't rely on your people to do everything for you. Considering Vervik's position in high society and whom he dealt with in Karat, this has to be one really entangled web of shittery which I think you should unravel personally. You don't say. I always try not to stick my neck out too much and play with the high rollers. Too dangerous and bad for business it is. Anyways, when I first read about it last month, I didn't think this concerned me. That's the thing you're supposed to haul back to Karat after liberating it from the useless? It was a small chest with an alchemical lock, wasn't it? You are thinking what I'm thinking too, right? Now the Lich was basically in Rem's face, his eye sockets aglow with blue burning flames of mana. Seems that this new job of his had piqued the interest and Felk wasn't hiding it. Yes, I am even more suspicious now than I was when I first read the Countess's letter. Perhaps Vervik made that chest, but, well, like you said yourself, that does not mean that he was killed for it. You cataloged all my job letters after I read them, so you should know what I know. Rem, if you want, I can give you something that might help you open that chest. That is, if you decide to poke the dragon's eye, so to speak. Your choice, buddy. The Lich floated back and continued reading his book. Rem noticed that there was a key next to the candelabra, and it bore the alchemist's sign of Felkmar. The Lich sensed him eyeballing his key and mumbled, "You can take my alchemist chest opener, try to unlock the thing and see what's inside. You can do it yourself, or better yet, bring an alchemist along with you. Like I said, your choice." Rem quickly weighed the advantages and disadvantages of taking Felk on the job. The solver of problems always picked one of the helpers who resided in his mansion and brought them with him in case he needed an extra hand. His suspicions made Rem consider doing so. After all, it was better to have an ace in the sleeve than not, and he was playing with buggers. Why not use them? Exploit their skill. Regardless, he had to choose one item to take with him, and Rem hastily rummaged through the chest's contents. On most low-level jobs, he usually took only one. Wondrous items were expensive, and most took forever to recharge. Indeed, those of arcane skill could infuse said item with their own mana, replenishing their charge, but that took quite a long time. Many of the older artifacts required great concentration to recharge, that and insane amounts of mana. It seemed that Felk had 6 items ready for him, all charged up and neatly stashed inside that chest of his. The first item was a dark blue lined with black runes hooded cloak. The thing was infused with invisibility magic and could hide him completely, sustaining its shroud for half an hour at best. Even if he didn't use its magic, it was a good cloak and aided him since he was skilled at evading detection. It was best used under cover of darkness, although the spell could be activated any time and worked perfectly even under the brightest of sunlight. The other item were his recently looted pair of magical boots. They were comfy and offered protection from the elements, kept their wearers' feet dry. Best of all, the boots were infused with silence magic, and after activation, made Rem's footsteps soundless. That lasted for 1 hour. Then the charges were spent and they became a normal pair of boots. His magic rope was also in the chest. Apart from the fact that you could use it to tie something or climb down or up, easily reaching another area, the rope was infused with binding magic. You could order it to tie itself somewhere or tie someone. It followed one order, and that was it. Its charge was spent. That knot it tied, though. Only the rope's user could untie it, and the thing was extra strong. You need a weapon infused with magic to cut it. An ordinary looking gold ring, which was infused with shield magic, was also inside the chest. That could be used and would stop 2, maybe 3 ranged attacks and a simple spell, like Arcane Missile for example. The ring had a small note attached to it, and it said, quote, "This item's magic protects from normal ranged attacks only, not arcane guns," end quote. The wand, which was also stashed conveniently inside this chest, was also a one-time use only. It had a single charge of the bog magic, which when activated created a small, muddy, and very sticky swamp. The magic worked almost instantaneously, and only those who were of the arcane could successfully detect it. Them and others who had access to magical items, which gave them arcane sight. An amulet, which allowed its wearer to project his or her voice at distance, was the last item lying on the bottom of his chest. It was infused with ventriloquist magic and worked only for 10 minutes at best. But if one was creative and had a good plan, a lot of less cerebral enemies could be fooled with it. That, and you could find other, even more creative uses for the amulet. If you've enjoyed this telling, then please consider subscribing to this channel, liking the video, and sharing, as that would help this channel grow exponentially. Also, give a little support to the writer and author of this tale, Aragmar, also known as the Black Knight, listed down below. He can be found on Minds.com and is selling books. Star Shatter, a sci-fi novel, found on Amazon, also linked below. With that, I want to thank you for visiting. Have a wonderful night. God bless, and farewell.